Hi, it's Kraig with theaffinitygame.com, the online adventure game where the goal is to help you make a friend in the real world. And at The Affinity, we cover things like social rules, the rules of cool, and the rules of friendship. And today I'd like to talk to you about something that's kind of a social rule and a friendship rule and a superpower tip all rolled into one. And that is giving a genuine compliment. And now, a genuine compliment is based on the social rule that it just plain feels good to have somebody tell you something positive about yourself. And so everybody feels that way, and that's why giving a genuine compliment can be so powerful. And it is also to be distinguished from something that's called flattery. And flattery is where you give somebody a compliment, but it's not really very sincere. So, for instance, if somebody says to you, "Oh, you look fantastic," and they give you a big eye roll, you'll know that that's not really sincere, and flattery can really wind up backfiring, and that people perceive it as an insult rather than a compliment. Some people also confuse the brutally honest observation with a genuine compliment. They think that anything that just pops into their head is a pearl of wisdom and worthy of expression, and I assure you it is not. So, for example, I went to a party not too long ago, and there were a bunch of people there who I hadn't seen for about 20 years. And one guy says to me, "You're bald." That's the first thing he says to me after not seeing me for 20 years. And it made me wonder, well, does he think that I'm not aware that I'm bald? Because I've been staring at this noggin for 20 years. And it's not something I'm sensitive about. I actually like being bald. I just thought it was rather strange. And I'm not sure he meant it as an insult, but I kind of took it as an insult. So that's something to be aware of, as you should distinguish between being brutally honest and giving a genuine compliment. Compliment needs to be positive. So without further delay, I'd like to present to you the 5 steps for paying a genuine compliment. Step number 1, notice it. And what that means is just to simply notice, be aware of things that are going on around you and things that you like and things that are positive in other people. Step number 2, craft it. And this is where the hard work happens. You have to be somewhat analytical. It's also a place where things can really go haywire and go off the rails if you don't do it exactly right, because again, some people think that they're giving a compliment when they're really not. So we use a little guideline called GAPS for crafting your genuine compliment. So the G is for genuine. That means it has to be something that you really feel. The A in GAPS is for appropriate. And this is where you need to be careful about complimenting, for instance, people's physical features, because a lot of times they don't really have control over that. So I still think it's okay to say you look great, but perhaps even better is to focus on someone's character or their actions or their choices. So that's the A for appropriate. Next is the P in GAPS, and that's for positive. So again, it shouldn't be just a neutral observation. It certainly shouldn't be a negative observation. It should really be positive. And then finally, S in GAPS is for specific. And that is where you provide real detail to somebody, and that way they know you're really thinking about it, and that's a much more powerful way to deliver a compliment. So, for example, a good compliment would be, "You are an amazing artist. I love the way you put that shading detail into the portrait that you drew of my cat." A counterexample, something that's not a good compliment, is, "You're bald." So eventually you get to the point where you don't have to think about it quite so much, but in the beginning, you're definitely going to want to spend some time crafting that compliment. Step number 3 is say it. And this is where it actually requires some level of courage and some level of confidence that it's going to be okay to say this. So you need to really muster up that courage and just say that compliment that you've just crafted. Now, if you really have difficulty or you're not verbal, you can actually write it. And if it's a well-written compliment, it's something that someone might read over and over again, and that can be extremely powerful. Step number 4, accept the response. And this is difficult sometimes because you have to understand is that not everybody knows how to accept a genuine compliment. So some people, they might deflect it. And deflecting means they say, oh, that's not really true. No, I really don't look good. And that is a reflection that they might be a little bit shy, maybe even a little bit embarrassed. But don't worry, because they actually love receiving that compliment even though they react that way. Or they might have learned how to accept a genuine compliment and they thank you for it. And that's a great thing. Just have the confidence that no matter what their response is, what you've done is a good thing by paying them a genuine compliment. And then step number 5, and this might seem a little weird, but step number 5 is that you have to learn to accept a compliment yourself. And why is that? It's because oftentimes when you give someone a compliment, they will actually compliment you back. And therefore, you need to make sure that you don't deflect it and say, oh, that's not true, or I don't accept it. Just simply show gratitude. It really is very easy. Say, thank you very much. That's very kind of you to say. It's an easy thing to say, and it acknowledges what they've just said to you, and that makes the whole cycle work well. So those are the 5 steps. Number 1 is notice it. Number 2 is craft it. Number 3 is say it. Number 4 is accept the response. And number 5 is being able to accept a compliment yourself. So if you feel like I've got anything wrong or I've left anything out, please just note that in our comments section. Also, please sign up for our newsletter. And before signing off, I gotta say, you are a fantastic listener, and I love it when you don't fall asleep during my stories. This is Kraig from theaffinitygame.com.